And this was spontaneous in LA because they were coming at places of work, right? And so people
Right.
gathered
Right.
around that event. So, this wasn't a planned protest. This was a
Right.
spontaneous event. Those are the ones that have the tendency to become hot.
Yep.
Whereas these planned protests, they have been there's been a lot of them since Trump went into office, and they have all
Mhm.
been peaceful.
Yeah.
There have really not been any dramatic incidents that have occurred because of them.
Right.
And so theoretically, that's the way the 14th should be. Hopefully, that will be the case. They're planned events. People are showing up to say that they're unhappy with the state of current affairs, but there's
Yep.
no violence planned as part of that protest, right?
Right.
Um,
And so I
the,
think that most of the places where people are going to really kind of protest are the places where they are more accepting of undocumented immigrants. And so these are the places where we need the police, who are typically also prohibited from interacting with ICE raids. These are the places where the police need to kind of like hold hands with the protesters and say, "We're on your side."
Welcome to another episode of the Bloomburg Democrat. I'm Sally Taylor. This is my thoughtful and intelligent younger brother, John Daniels.
No.
We're here to talk about more of what's going on in the United States today because, as I was saying, it seemed inevitable that things were going to get darker as time went
Mm.
on. And we're certainly moving into that phase, I think, of this particular regime. I'm very careful. I always want to say administration because that is the logical word when you're talking about the presidency,
Right.
but they're definitely behaving more as a regime than they are an administration.
Yeah.
So, John, I wanted to talk initially about ICE itself. And of course, it
Hmm.
is situations around the ICE organization that
Hmm.
has led to the riots. I don't even want to call them riot. Well, they started out as
Well, so far as
protests, became
protests, yeah.
riots. Right. Well,
Okay.
started out for sure, but then there's always a few people who are going to, as police become involved, as, more militarized tactics kind of
Yeah.
get put into place, there are those who
Yeah.
will respond in kind.
Yeah.
And that has definitely happened. So let's talk about ICE first and some of the tactics they've been using that seem to have led us to this spot. What are
Yeah.
you aware of with regard to how ICE has been moving forward in its goal to remove immigrants?
I'm aware of agents not wearing uniforms, masking their faces, grabbing people off the streets, very Gestapo style, not rule of law style at all. No due process, sending people to prisons abroad, and not just U.S. controlled prisons, but prisons that are controlled by other countries, and just a complete disregard for human life and human liberty. And even now, the guy who was sent to El Salvador as a mistake is now back, but being charged with crimes. Well, I guess he's gonna probably be able to have those charges defeated. He'll defeat those charges. I'm quite sure. Who's gonna convict him based on anything that's currently being levied against him? So, wow.
Yes. Wow. Well, for sure. And yes, I'm with you. All along, my primary concern with regard to the way that this current regime in office is behaving has been around immigration. There's lots of
Yeah.
other egregious things that they have been doing,
Oh, yes.
but for me, it's these inhumane tactics
Yeah.
and these really just completely avoiding rule of law tactics that
Yeah.
they've been using to create, in essence, terror in
Yeah.
our nation for
Yeah.
those who may have been here for many, many years and have, worked in the country, but were here without
Peacefully
documentation.
contributed. Yes.
Right. To our country and paid taxes and the whole thing without any of the benefits of
Yeah.
citizenship. It
let's
seems
let's put those
they
words into quote. Benefits of
right.
citizenship.
Well, yes. Right. But theoretically, if uh if you are a citizen, at someday you might, if you're lucky,
Yeah.
be able to draw on your social security or, receive health care, when you need it.
Yeah.
And that has just not been the case for so many people who have lived here largely undocumented, and some who came over as children and have been here their whole lives.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the Trump regime claimed it was going after criminals,
Right.
going after the violent criminals, the gang members.
Right. And my question all along has been, why haven't we been doing that before now? If these
Right.
are just regular lawbreakers, even citizens, they should be arrested and
Right.
go through the courts.
Right.
And we haven't been doing it. In Trump's first administration, his first presidency, right? And clearly Biden has also been not cracking down on crime.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't know. Do we really want the police as they are to be doing this ever? Because
Well, they've become more and more militarized over time, for sure.
yeah,
And that is not the case for police in many countries. I mean, there
right.
are lots of countries where the police don't even carry a gun. Now, granted, they're in countries where there are much more strict gun laws, and people
Yes.
have to show, clear responsibility for their use of firearms and the reasons that they have them. And
Right.
in the United States, guns are just willy-nilly accessible,
Yeah.
legally and illegally.
Yeah.
Um, so I understand why our police officers carry guns, because
Sure.
they come up
Sure. Sure.
against them on a regular basis.
Sure.
That said, they've also become quite militarized with
Yes.
military grade tactics and weapons.
Right.
And in these cases, they do utilize them against, the American public.
Right. Even
My
people who are not carrying weapons.
right. Well, exactly. And that's the case we're talking about here.
Right.
But the reason that these things are occurring is because ICE is targeting the easy pickings,
Yeah.
right? And they're suspected illegals. And
Right.
without any evidence that that's the case, and I
Right.
don't even like using the word illegals, but suspected undocumented persons.
Right.
And so they hit in a big raid Home Depots and a donut shop. And I think maybe it was a
Right.
restaurant or something else. They were going to places of people's work.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean, if you're working, you're probably not out gangbanging on the streets in the middle of the day, right?
exactly,
These are not
exactly,
the hardened criminals that they claim to be going after.
exactly. Because those hardened criminals, they're getting easy money in other ways. They're not doing it
Right.
working at Home Depot.
That's right.
And that has repeatedly been the case. They're grabbing people when they're at their court dates, at the
Yes.
immigration courts, doing
Right.
what they're supposed to be doing
Right.
to become
To become,
documented,
yes.
to become
Yes.
citizens, or at least legally here.
Yes. It's
And
farce. It's a farce.
it's absolute farce.
Yeah.
And so it just was inevitable
Yeah.
that there would not only be protests, which is how this did start. ICE was
Hmm.
coming down on some of these places of employment, and the people showed up and
Hmm.
protested.
Yeah.
But it quickly began to dissolve. As soon as there's that interaction, it
Yeah.
can begin to dissolve. And this is exactly, in my mind, exactly what the Trump administration was after. They
Yeah.
wanted this. They liked the optics of it. And
Yeah.
to me, it is an excuse, I am afraid, to ultimately declare martial law?
They can't, I don't think they can do it nationwide just because maybe one state flares up, right? I mean, how can you justify that? They can try.
What
I think they can
who
try.
are you talking who are you talking about, John? Are
Yes,
you talking
I
about
understand this,
a
but
normal logical group of people, or are you
I
talking about
think
the Trump administration?
I think that even the Trump administration must understand that if they try to do this nationwide, like well, to declare martial law nationwide, that they're going to be citizens who are going to rise up. I think because
But these
it's
are
just
citizens
it's
rising up
way
as
too
well. This
far.
is not
Yes,
just
yes, yes.
undocumented immigrants in these
No,
protests. These
I
are
completely agree. I
citizens.
understand. And I think that California is a place that is kind of unique in the United States because of the number of migrant workers who are there to help feed America, essentially, right? They harvest the fruit, the citrus, and the just the regular crops that grow in abundance in California. And this is so, of course, this is very important to California. They need this revenue that they get from all this food that they produce and sell to the rest of the United States. And if they remove all of the undocumented migrant workers from California, the entire United States is going to suffer greatly. And I think that, so, of course, even if they do this in other parts of the United States, California, of course, wants to protect their produce, the money that their income that they get from the produce that they produce.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I agree with that piece of the puzzle, but for me, that's a single piece of a much larger puzzle. Donald Trump does not like California. It is a
it's
blue
understandable that
state. I
he,
mean, granted, he
yes,
does have voters there, right? But it is
right,
largely a blue state.
yeah,
And he is looking to attack blue states
right,
beyond all others.
yeah,
And Gavin Newsom has been resistant to his practices and his policies.
yeah,
And so it does to me feel as much like an attack on California
yeah,
as it is on protesters or immigrants or, any of the above.
yeah. I agree with you. And so ICE, in my opinion, is basically a bit of an extreme version of your local police forces that have always been guilty of abusing the law and not following the law and like it's like your regular dirty cops on steroids, probably literally as well as figuratively. Yeah, it's causing a large problem for the United States.
Yeah, and there has been a lot of people questioning the the types of things that ICE is doing, and you've mentioned some of those already. Things like showing up in plain clothes.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, a really egregious point is not providing ID. People
Yes.
ask them, "Who are you? Show me your ID. How do I know
Yeah.
who you are?" And
Yeah.
they say, "We don't have to do that. We're with the government." That's all they
Yeah.
say. We're with the
Yeah.
government. So are
Yeah.
these even truly ICE agents?
Yeah. Who
Right?
knows?
Are
I
they
mean,
deputized, somebody's security, employees? Are they Proud Boys? Are they, any other number of somewhat militant organized groups of men
right.
who are essentially bounty hunters,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I posed a question not long ago because I had seen a video of these
Hmm.
plainclothes masked men
Yeah.
with police type, like army surplus, police surplus store
Yeah.
type
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
tactical
Yeah. It's like
gear on.
army surplus. Yeah, is what it looks
Right,
like.
right. I mean, one of them had police across the front, and another one had some three letters that began with an F. I could not find those letters to tell me what that was supposed to mean anywhere online. I did a search for it.
Hmm.
My question was, in a country that declares, the primacy of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms,
Hmm.
for these masked men coming on to private property
Yeah.
without identifying themselves, and
Yeah.
taking people, do you have a right
Yeah.
to shoot them?
I would think that you do. And I would think that people would start shooting. If not already, they probably. I'm surprised that we haven't heard about ICE agents being just gunned down, because I really expect that to happen.
Yeah.
It
Well,
makes no
they're if
sense
they
that these people can
because
do
they
this.
could be anybody. They could
They
be
really
anybody
could.
posing as
Yes, it's
federal
so easy
agents.
to buy military surplus, and
Right.
you can embroider your own little police badge and stick it on there, like a little
Sure.
thing on the front saying police. Anybody can
Right.
do that.
Right. So that's my deep concern is whether or not, number one, actual agents end up getting shot because they don't identify themselves
Right.
and are masked. They're
Yeah.
masked men.
Yeah. Like, where in the Constitution does it say that the government has the right to be masked and just start abducting people? Like, it's
Right.
nowhere.
Right. And it's really the reason the Constitution was written the way it was, so that you couldn't just be randomly abducted,
Exactly.
whether you are documented or not. We are
Yes.
a nation that was founded by undocumented immigrants.
Exactly.
I mean, that is our
Yeah.
foundation
Yes. Every founding
historically,
father, as far as I know, was an
was an
undocumented
undocumented immigrant.
an immigrant.
Yes.
Yeah. The Native Americans were not handing out, green cards.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so our Constitution was written to provide these protections to the public. And I
Right.
know that our laws have been written over time to include immigration laws, and that's perfectly fine. I agree that there
Sure.
should be a system.
Times change, of course.
Times do change. But that said, the cruelty and the violence that is now being inflicted on essentially our neighbors who have done nothing but contribute,
Yeah.
as opposed to truly rooting out criminals and
Yeah.
violent offenders,
Which we should have been
is
doing all along.
right.
And so
And to be
and so
honest,
I
have been.
I do
We've always
applaud.
tried to
Okay,
find
okay.
those violent people.
I do applaud the efficiency in which they have found some violent people, right? Like, they've found some bad guys, and they've just gone after them finally. I don't know why we didn't go after them before, and now they're going after them in some cases, but they're just going way too far. They're taking all of the people who are also not violent and
Right.
who are just trying to live peaceful lives and work.
Right. And the fact is that immigrants, undocumented, especially immigrants,
Mhm.
commit crimes at a significantly lower rate
Of
than
course.
American citizens
Of course.
because they
They have
don't want
so
to buck
much
the
to
system.
lose.
They
Yeah,
do.
they have
And
so much
so
to lose.
they
They keep their
they
heads
toe the
down.
line. All right,
They
exactly.
go to church.
Yeah.
They they're nice to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got to have some more reasonable immigration laws and laws
Yeah.
that can help help sort out making people become documented and here legally.
Yeah. I agree.
And instead of arresting them and imprisoning them without due process at their places of work.
Yeah. We're really just right now, currently, our country is cutting off its nose to spite its face. People are so angry about so many things, and these people are the scapegoats.
They are the
We're
scapegoats.
we're just attacking them because they're easy.
And that is forever the tactics of fascist authoritarian
Yes, it is.
governments.
Yeah.
You make marginalized people the scapegoat for other people's anger.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we're seeing. I did try to find out if ICE was deputizing, people like we had suggested might be the case. I did
Hmm.
ask ChatGPT about it,
Hmm.
and they don't seem to have any information about whether
Yeah.
that is happening or not. It
Yeah.
kind of is claiming that it doesn't think that it is. but it did speak to the fact that they're basically using loopholes between civil law and federal law in order to
Mhm.
get away with not identifying themselves.
Mhm.
And that they're, showing up in plain clothes and that sort of thing as sort of a tactical ambiguity that
Mhm.
tends to cause people to comply because they just don't know what's going on. And that is a possibility. I'm not sure because some of these guys seem to not fully know the law
Oh,
and what's going on and how they're
uh,
going about doing it.
which police officer does know the law?
Well, they're not
I've
lawyers, are they? I mean, they didn't go
no,
to law
they're
school.
not. They're not, and they clearly do not have very good memories because they've studied these things and just it goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
So, oh, wow, I've lately I find myself watching all of these just terrible videos on YouTube where the police are just abusing their power and making
Yeah.
up just bullshit, claiming that they can do whatever they want to do. And I'm getting tired of watching this stuff because it drags me down. Like, why do I
Well,
keep
it's
watching this
heartbreaking.
stuff? It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. You do have to limit the amount that, I mean, being
Yes.
aware is one thing, John, but driving yourself to depression is another. So you got to find that balance.
Yes, no, you're
But
right.
I sometimes wonder if this isn't just the nature of the job and the type of people it attracts.
Well, I think
Because,
certainly it does attract these types of people. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, there are no education requirements as far as I can understand. Maybe you have to graduate high school, but
I think that's all you have to go into like
yeah,
the police, what do they call
yeah,
it? The
well,
school,
yeah,
police
yeah, the
school,
police academy.
um, academy. Thank you. That's the
Yeah,
word I was looking
like
for.
we should really raise our standards a little bit, right? At least an associate's degree, maybe 2 years in a community college. It would
Well,
really
and
help.
certainly, I think probably again at the officers level, I'm not sure. This is something I would have to look into. I'm not sure how
Yeah,
you can become more elevated in the, police working system, whether or not it requires
I
a
think it's just how
degree
much
to,
money you steal from people through, what what do they call the laws where you can just confiscate
uh,
money and say that you think it was for
oh,
drugs or whatever
yes, yes. And even if they illegally took that, they very often never give it back.
Yeah, no,
But
they never give it back.
that's a more cynical view than I typically have.
No, but this happens
although
all the time. It
although
happens all the
sometimes,
time.
yeah, police traps are often known to be the thing that actually pays the force, in small towns
Oh
and
yes, like
things.
speed traps
Um,
and things like
yeah,
this, and
yeah,
the red light cameras and stuff that so many of them are ticketing people illegally,
yeah,
and people just tend to pay it because
yeah. It's a
it's
nuisance.
easier. Yes, it's
Yeah,
a nuisance, and it's easier than actually fighting it.
yeah.
And these things are now also being used to track people across multiple state lines. What was
Mhm.
there was a case recently where a police officer checked like I don't know 52,000 different cameras and actually wrote on the report in the computer system that it was for an investigation, but often they don't write anything at all, and
Right.
they can just they can track your
Access it. Yeah,
these license plate scanning cameras. It's terrible.
yeah.
In the United States, you live in a police state at this point. You really do.
It definitely does seem that it's that's the case, and it's getting much worse. I will say
Yeah.
my one scariest interaction with a police officer was my very last day of work at my very last teaching job.
Mm.
And I was I don't think I was late, but apparently I was speeding a bit on these back Texas roads.
Yeah.
And luckily I don't do that as often anymore. I haven't had a ticket for a very long time. But I had my music playing. It was up loud. I was making a beeline for school. And seemingly, was not aware of him. There was a police
Mm.
officer who clocked me,
Mm.
followed me, turned on his lights, never saw his lights. Again, I'm very focused ahead of me instead of behind me because you know.
Right. You're going fast.
Well, you know, my
Yeah.
speed was probably fluctuating quite a bit with regard to where I was, and it was
Right,
windy
right.
back roads, right? But I didn't hear him either. Apparently, at some point,
Yeah.
he turned on his sirens. I didn't even hear him. I do have I'm a
Yeah.
little hard of hearing. It's in our
Okay.
family.
Well,
I
I
didn't even
wonder if he
hear him.
didn't turn on his sirens. Who knows?
Well, I
Were they
finally
on when you
did. At
stopped?
some point, I finally did check my rear view and saw his lights, and
Mm-hmm.
I immediately pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
He got out screaming with his hand on his gun, "Get out of the car."
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a dress. I'm in my, school clothes. I'm this very unassuming white woman driving a van.
Yeah.
And he freaked me out. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
I'm like, "What?"
Well, they
And
escalate almost.
he was extremely aggressive.
Yeah. They
And
escalate the situation almost every single time.
I did step out of the car,
Yeah.
and he was really, really aggressive.
Mm.
To the point of, I would say, almost abusive, but it was all verbal. And I said, "I'm sorry. I did not see you. I didn't hear you." As soon as I did, I pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he ultimately gave me multiple tickets.
Yeah.
And I went to my very unhappy last day of school. I was already unhappy about the school
Yeah.
I was at because of other reasons, but it was my very last day there, and it went from bad to worse.
Yeah.
But I was
Yeah.
really surprised. I was obviously not a threat of any sort,
Right.
right? I
Right.
had no weapons in my car. I was in a bright red van. I mean, like, you couldn't miss me. It's not like I was trying to hide myself or be inconspicuous.
Right. Right.
So anyway, that was my
Uh, I
worst
guess
interaction.
you probably weren't driving recklessly, right?
No, I was just driving probably about 10 miles over the limit,
Yeah.
which is enough for them to stop you, right? If you're going at
Right.
least 10 miles over, they'll pull you over. And I
Yeah.
never went, I don't think, more than that. But
Mm.
it was, enough that he followed me, but apparently he followed me longer than he was happy about.
Right. Right.
And so I got lit into. On the other hand, I've had police officers that were absolute angels,
Right.
in tough circumstances.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for them for that reason. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are good officers out there. I don't want to paint them all with the same paintbrush,
Right.
because a lot of them are good men and women.
Mm-hmm.
But we are in a time frame where this escalation between the public and not just police, but really I'm looking at federal forces,
Yeah.
ICE agents, the
Yeah.
National Guard being called into LA, 2,000 National Guard members with the threat of bringing in Marines.
Right.
That's martial law.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
martial law against a situation that this administrative regime created.
Yeah. That's right.
Where do you think it's going to go from here, John? Again, I'm asking you to look into a crystal ball that you don't have, but if you were to guess,
Well,
how's this going to play out?
well, at least in California, it might have been Gavin Newsom who said, but it might have been someone else. I don't remember exactly who it was in the article that I was reading, but they said that the police are basically in a situation that the local police, the LAPD, they're in a situation that they can't win.
Right.
They're there to kind of help control things, but not
Yeah.
necessarily to stop it, because
Right.
I think they kind of understand the situation
Yeah.
and the calling in of the National Guard and the threat of
Right.
the Marines was really just an exacerbation of the entire
Oh,
situation.
for sure.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not trying to resolve the situation peacefully at this point. They're just trying to burn everything to the ground. And that's basically the same as the guy who was on top of the Waymo car smashing his skateboard, right? He's an anarchist, clearly.
Right.
And
Right.
he's there to just watch the world burn. And maybe not the National Guard members themselves, but the people who are telling them what to do are just kind of there to watch California burn. So I think it's gonna vary on a state by state basis. The more red states where people tend to be bootlickers and happy to watch their fellow humans being treated as less than human are going to probably have an easier time of things. And then the places where people value human decency are going to have a harder time of things because
Yeah.
they're going to be the ones who speak out against the boots on the necks of their fellow humans. So I think it's going to be something that the United States is going to have to address in the future once we get past this era of authoritarianism. We're going to start pulling things back a little bit, I think, out of necessity. If we don't, then it's just going to happen again very quickly. And until we start to pull things back and kind of rein in police power for one, and this strange imbalance in the government that we have when we're supposed to have some checks and balances, and currently nobody's checking and nobody's balancing, then it's going to kind of continue to slowly go from a simmer to a boil, I think. I don't know that
Do
it's
you,
going to go to a civil war, but it's going to be
gosh, I
rough.
hope not.
It's
Yeah.
going to be rough.
Um, do you think there will ever come a point where Congress is going to say enough?
The current Congress, maybe not. There's so many people with their heads up their asses. Like they're only there for themselves. They're not there for anybody else. They're elected to represent their people that elected them, but they only do that through like lip service. They're just there to
Right.
say that they're going to do what they were elected to do, and then they're just going to do whatever they want to do to enrich themselves and their friends and the people who continue to pay them money. We got to get rid of this Citizens United ruling where
Yeah.
corporations are
Yeah.
citizens and can contribute money and as free speech. Like, because if you want to say that corporations are citizens, then we should say that AI are also citizens, that they're people. Because why not? I mean, we have one non-born entity being called a person. AI are far more intelligent than most corporations. They should be people too.
One of the things that is in this big, beautiful bill, of course, is a restriction against any laws being passed trying to contain AI in any way.
Well, I'm not completely against
Oh,
that. I'm a pretty big fan of AI. I think that it's pretty great stuff, and I think that
well,
we
it
can.
takes away it takes away states' rights to
Well,
manage
yes, of
these
course it
things at the
does.
state
Sure,
level.
sure, sure, sure. This is always something that we're fighting about: states' rights versus,
Right.
federal rights,
But
and the
isn't that
Republicans were
these
generally
corporations?
on
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
side of states' rights, right? Usually, the Republicans are on the side of states' rights, and but only when it's convenient. And then other times it's all about federal power when they have the federal power. So
But who do you
yeah.
think wanted that little bit of law put into that bill? It wasn't AI
Well,
itself.
no, 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 no. Of course not.
It
It's
was
just
the
the AI companies who
corporations.
want to. Yes,
Right.
it's the
So,
corporations who want
you
to
are you
profit off
gonna
of AI.
right. So on one hand, you want corporations out of politics, but then you're okay with the corporation being in
No,
politics in this particular
no,
situation.
no, 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 not at all. Because AI is primarily being driven by open source efforts, just researching people who are into research and stuff like this. All of the AI that we currently have is all based off of open source projects. Like
Yes, but it
it
is
all runs off of open
companies
source.
that are working to make it more privatized and make money off
To
of it.
make
I
it
mean,
more
that's the whole point.
privatized, yes, and make yes, no,
Right.
definitely, it is companies that are driving the monetization of it, but that's not the base, and it's probably not the future either. I
And
think we're
it's
just going to
not who
continue.
but that's not who will benefit from that law.
No, not from the law. No, I
Open
think that
sources,
everyone can.
those working as open source are not going to benefit from the law the way it's written. It's the corporations working to make
Well, I
money
don't
off
know
of
how the law
AI
is
that are going to make
written.
that
I
money.
don't know how the law is written. I haven't read it at all.
I'll see
But
if I can post it
I do
on
know that
the.
if you were to put a moratorium on AI research, open source projects will also be impacted by that,
Oh,
right?
yes, of course.
It's
Yes, of
not
course.
just corporations that are benefiting from freedom
But they don't
in
mind,
this
but
situation.
corporations don't mind giving crumbs to the AI folks who are helping to develop it.
Oh, they don't have to give
It
anything. The AI folks who are helping to develop it, they're 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 very all about freedom of information. Anyone can benefit from it, but we'll all benefit from it, right? That's the thing about AI. No, sorry, not AI, open source, is that that is something that is truly free that everyone can benefit from if you're willing to just download it and use it.
But here's my one thought, and I'm not debating whether or not AI is good or bad.
Mm.
What I'm debating is the motives of the people utilizing
Oh yes. Well, there's all
it.
kinds of there's
Yeah.
all kinds of nefarious
So
things that can be done through AI.
it's one thing to say we'll all benefit, but we will also all suffer if it's in the hands of those who have more nefarious goals in mind.
If you're yes, there's no doubt about it. Most people don't try to learn about anything. So yes, most people will probably suffer, but people who are willing to study are not going to suffer, I don't think. So change yourself, be different, open a book, open a web page that teaches you something, right? Learn about everything you can. Learn about the law, learn about computers, learn about AI, learn about human rights, right? Just stop being passive, stop hiding in your shell, stop sticking your head in the sand, learn something, and we'll all be better off. The problem that we have is so many people are content to know nothing and they believe everything they see. And so much of what we see is bullshit coming from people who have ulterior motives. So if we can just stop being stupid, we'll be fine.
With that said, I hope that the that humanity lives up to your,
No, we're
ideals,
not
John.
going
I
to. We're
really
not
do.
going to. We're not going to. No. I hope
That's
that
what I'm
AI
concerned about.
will carry the torch of the hopeful and the dreamers, and we'll go and explore the universe. That's what I hope, because humans are probably not going to do it, but AI might. And so I'm all right with AI taking over humanity at this point.
Well, humanity has got to stop mistreating each other. And
Yeah,
that's really the topic of today's discussion is the
yeah,
mistreatment and the inhumanity that is occurring, that is causing these new moments of strife in
yeah.
the nation of the United States, but also across the world. When these insurrections or moments of conflict occur, it's
Hmm.
because someone is being hurt along the way, and then
Yeah,
blame starts being thrown, and then weapons start coming out.
yeah,
And I pray for peace in our country.
yeah,
I pray for peace across the world, but it's only going to come if we start treating each other as humans,
yeah.
fellow humans, and
Right.
not making groups, entire groups, largely of the underserved,
Yeah,
subhuman in nature.
yeah. I agree. Yeah,
So,
we have to remember that when one person is being held down, it's because someone else is trying to get ahead. And we have to just kind of accept that it's okay to have enough. You don't have to have more than everybody else. Have enough that you're happy and then just stop. Like just maintain it, right? We don't have to always every quarter be increasing. There's no infinite growth. And so grow just enough that you can take care of yourself and you can take care of the people who are with you. And that's enough.
Yeah,
Maintain your market segment. That's good.
I agree with you, brother. I'm with you on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So with that said, we'll watch the current events as they unfold
Yeah.
and hope that saner heads prevail. But
Yeah.
honestly, I saw this coming a long way away, and I do think it's going to get a little worse before it gets better.
Yeah. I think it probably will.
Um, but I will keep my fingers crossed that very
As
few
long
will
as
be harmed.
Congress continues to do nothing, it's going to get worse. Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it. Till
Yeah.
next time.
Yep. Bye.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.